And we've all seen birds trapped in the gym or in your house or in a classroom.
It always makes me sad. It always upsets me because they're trying to get out, they're banging on the glass, and they're frustrated, and they're in the wrong place. So
the way you just captured that.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you. What I want to ask you is about your poetry. I'm not that great a poet. I've done writing and so on. I notice your poems don't rhyme. Mm-hmm. What do you call that? Free verse?
Free verse, blank verse. Sometimes they rhyme inside.
Why don't you comment about that?
Sometimes I don't really like using rhyme that much, but I do sometimes use rhyme inside the lines. Sometimes things rhyme.
Okay.
So, sometimes it's by accident, and sometimes it's on purpose, but I don't mind that.
And I know when you were here before, we talked about alliteration. Mm-hmm. Where the three words.
Yes, there was alliteration. Now I'm not gonna be able to find it because I'm gonna forget. But yeah, there's alliteration is when I'm trying to find it in my poem, but when you have words that start with the same letter in a row.
Same letter.
Yeah, and I had it in one of my poems, and smooth sapling skin. Smooth. Yes.
Sapling skin.
That's alliteration.
Terrific. Yeah. Alliteration. Mm-hmm. Okay. There was a poem that I heard you talk about ants.
Yes.
I sort of like that one.
Okay.
You want to share that with our viewing audience?
Yes, I have to.
Well, while you're getting it, let me just tell our viewing audience, I'm interviewing a very creative young lady. Her name is Meri Harary Fleischman. She writes the most beautiful poetry.
There it is.
She's also a mother of 4 children, has a husband, household, and she's the daughter of Al Harary, whom a lot of you know, and her mother, Helen Blitzer. So she comes from a distinguised family.
Thank you. Okay,
You got the one about ants?
Yes, I have one. It's called Eating the House. This is when ants they keep eating our house. They eat, and we have to fix the hole, and it's very frustrating. Eating the house. Front porch tenants residing in beam, ants' black bellies bulging with whitewashed wood, ripping the meat off wooden skeleton with chainsaw teeth. Jagged caves of sublime darkness become retreat for royalty. Greedy wind queen sits on splintered throne, served by drones, craving the white-infused wooden delicacy that is my house. How dare she desire what is mine, devouring wood like a time machine, house vanishing, years going backwards within her shiny black body. Ants will be sprayed with liquid that burns their delicate bodies. I smile as I imagine crushing them with my hands, squeezing them into quivering debris. My husband shoots the poison, sealing the hole like a tomb. The ants now trapped inside, writhing black bodies, fresh cement within the beam, their skeletons, the new bones for my house.
Oh, I like that one.
Thank you.
And I can just visualize these big black carpenter ants eating away at the woodwork, at the wood, your foundation.
Yes. I want to say that poems can take a very simple memory and turn it into something more. And I think that poetry takes the mundane to a higher level. And I was thinking
about that. That's a good way to put it.
It just takes very simple things that you think don't really matter, and it takes it to a higher level. And
it focuses on particular things, too.
Yeah.
That you want to emphasize.
Yeah, and I want to read a poem. I just also wrote this poem a few days ago, and I always wanted to write a poem about when I used to walk my grandfather down the stairs. He had Parkinson's. And if you think about it, it's a very simple, my memory, writing poems is an interesting process because your memory, it's like a flash. Okay, I walked him down the stairs. But when I wrote the poem, I had to sort of dissect the memory into little bits and pieces like a puzzle and put it back together in an interesting way, and it made me think about all little aspects of it. It's called Parkinson's. Your bones tremble like the limbs of an old tree blown by the wind. I walk slowly down the stairs with you, as if descending a carpeted mountain, saying, "Take your time, Grandpa, take your time." We grasp each other's hands, your curved fingers clutching my shallow palms, hold tightly, interlocking my tiny hands, absorb your shaking. My sapling body begins to quiver with your disease. We reach the last step, walk down the long hallway to the kitchen. On the way, you tell me my hands are still wet from washing them, need to be dried completely. I ask you why, but you don't respond. Water droplets on my hands like tears transfer to your hands, trembling, as if to shake the sadness away, like a tree after it rains, drooping until the sun dries its leaves.
Wow.
I'm still working on this. Is a sort of a work in progress, but I wanted to read that because it took a little memory and kind of expanded on it.
And in there, I detected a beautiful metaphor. His limbs like an old tree.
Yeah, and at the end
that's great.
Yeah, and at the end there was a drooping tree too.
Right.
That was so. Yeah, I used the tree.
You are a genius. You're a whiz with the use of metaphors. I mean that.
I had a good teacher, Professor Vivian Shipley. Is my poetry teacher, and she really is a wonderful teacher. So I really give her a lot of credit.
Well,
thanks.
She's lucky she had somebody like you as a student.
Thank you.
It makes her teaching come alive, too,
Thanks.
I want to ask you a question. Mm-hmm. You have 4 children.
Yep.
Are you going to teach your children how to write poetry? Have you thought about it?
My son Micah likes to write. He likes to write. He just invented something. So I think writing in general is important to express yourself and to be a good writer for any job or career you need to write. So if they write poetry, great. I mean, I grew up hearing my mom's poetry. So I think my mom's a poet, and I grew up hearing her poetry. Her poetry is very similar to mine, and just by hearing her poetry, I think it helped me become a good poet. And I think when my children hear my poetry, it will inspire them.
I think that's great.
Thank you.
Another question I want to ask you, in hearing your poetry, I know you often choose your grandmother. I know you had one about your grandfather, but you often choose your grandmother as a model for your poems. Mm-hmm. Why?
Because both of my grandmothers, and I'm going to read you one about my grandmother in a minute, both of them were big influences on me. They I really love them. And they had life experiences that were very interesting that I never will have. One of them was a Holocaust survivor. She lost her whole family. She had to escape Germany. The other grandmother had a hard life as well, and I have a poem about her. She had to leave her country, Egypt, and come here and work and raise a family and leave her family as well. And I have a poem about that I'd like to read.
Like to hear it.
Okay, it's called Still Life with Yarn. I imagine Grandma sitting in her 2-room Brooklyn apartment, slowly stitching each leaf, each petal, transforming yarn into flowers that seem to need sun, water, earth. Nourished by her hands, first stitched like a seed, roots took in nutrients from her long fingers, which I inherited like this stitched painting hanging in my home. Preserved in frame, flowers grow into murky sky like coffee, their colors muted as if life has drained, flowing out like blood from a wound. She left Egypt, where she played under pyramid shadows, writing for days in steerage, refusing to eat. Entombed by darkness in a windowless cell, she arrived at Ellis Island, 16, alone, to be married, arranged like a flower, cut from family, replanted in new soil, face reflecting sky, absorbing sun. Her hands worked tirelessly, giving flowers life through each tiny stitch, between endless meals cooked in her cramped kitchen. She never imagined laboring in sweatshops, 12-hour days, pregnant, factory doors locked, a prisoner in her new country. She never imagined withering into an old woman, sitting in her living room chair, looking at hazy sunlight through a window, alone, waiting, wilting. Her fingers bent like hunchbacks around 2 metal rods like gardening tools. She carefully weaved her soul into each flower like a tapestry, as if she knew this painting would be mine after her hands were gone.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh, the imagery. in there.
Thank you.
And you know, I think all of us that have had grandmothers could relate to that poem. I think that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Do you have what she made?
Oh, yes. I wrote that poem hanging in one of my rooms are 3 of her needlepoint.
Needlepoints?
Yeah. So.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's written based on one of those. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
You just finished your first poetry class at Southern. What writing skills have you learned? We only have about 5 minutes left.
Yeah. Oh, I talked about that, about metaphor and about revision. Those are basically the most important writing skills I have learned as a writer, is to expand my poems. Like writing just about a tree isn't as powerful or as effective as writing about, using the tree as a metaphor to represent something else. I have one about a tree that represents my children.
Can you read it?
Sure. Here it is. It's called Cutting the Tree. The tree was beautiful but inconvenient. Pink blossoms turned brown, withered on the deck, tracked into my house every spring, traveling on the soles of our shoes, finding their way to my kitchen floor and down the hall, then swept back outside like lost children. We added a family room, and the tree with its new crown of golden orange was in the way, with branches outstretched towards our house. I stand in the kitchen with my 4 children, watching the men cut the tree, branch by branch, as I serve lunch, clean off the uneaten food from plastic plates. My life, slivers of time, shards remain. When my children grow and leave home, the new room will be dark, and my life will remain in pieces. Then I will miss the tree with the pink blossoms, inconvenient but familiar, that interrupted my day by wandering in the house, like my children, who I will one day wish would return, just so I could make them lunch one more time.
Oh, how nice.
Thank you.
That is so nostalgic.
And that poem was originally about a tree. And so my teacher said, write more. What could that tree be a metaphor for?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
Incredible.
Thank you.
And extraordinary.
Thank you.
I can't think of the right adjectives. I mean, your poems are just so terrific. Thank you. Would you believe we only have about a minute left?
Oh, boy. Okay.
What is your message to our viewing audience? What would you like to leave them with?
I think that everyone should try to write down their thoughts. It doesn't have to be a poem. It could be a diary, poems, stories, their memories, because part of me is on every one of those pages. And one day I'm hoping my future, my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-great-grandchildren will be able to read what I wrote. And I think everyone should try to write their memories, their memoirs down. Because even though no one here is famous,
right.
we're not movie stars, but our lives are interesting and our lives have value, and our future children will find them very interesting. Our future generations, I should say,
right.
future family, will find them very
And they're going to be very proud of Meri Harary Fleischman.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You did a super job.
Thank you.
Enjoyed your poetry.
Thank you very much.
Yep. We have to say goodbye.
Okay.
I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to wish you and your loved ones good health and happiness in the new year. And I hope you'll come again on the show.
I will.
Thank you. I got a sore arm.
It's okay.
But thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You're gifted.
Thank you.
Thank you. And God bless you and my viewing